If you've been on this channel for any length of time, you may know that my favorite D&D character that I've made is my girl Yumi, who is an elf. I've actually made a lot of elven D&D characters over the years. Clearly, I have a thing for ladies with pointy ears. I'm a very simple girly, and I'm clearly not the only one who likes elves. I mean, there's plenty of fantasy stuff out there that normal people outside the nerd zeitgeist know nothing about. But elves? I mean, seriously, who doesn't know what an elf is? Elves are the picture-perfect immortal. In many ways, they reflect our own desires back at us. Our desire for long life. Elves are entirely immortal. Our desire for beauty. Elves are blessed with unearthly beauty beyond anything we could dream of. Elves live in lives of luxury. Elves have incredible magical and martial abilities. Elves don't have any religious insecurities, as oftentimes they are chosen by the gods themselves. Elves are incredible. So why do we keep on turning these picture-perfect elven princesses into fascists?
In time, your entire race will be eradicated.
Like, seriously, it's been happening a lot recently. Hell, it's not even just a recent occurrence. It's been happening for a really long time across many aspects of fantasy. From the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim to Terry Pratchett's Lords and Ladies, elves have been portrayed as antagonists in many different ways. In fact, speaking of Terry Pratchett, I think he said it best. Elves are wonderful. They provoke wonder. Elves are marvelous. They create marvels. Elves are fantastic. They create fantasies. Elves are glamorous. They project glamour. Elves are enchanting. They weave enchantment. Elves are terrific. They beget terror. The thing about words is that meanings can twist just like a snake. And if you want to find snakes, look for them behind words that have changed their meaning. No one ever said that elves were nice. So why did this happen? Why have we been turning elves into fascists and seeing them more in an antagonistic light? So why did this happen? How did elves turn into the fascist antagonists that many know them as today? Well, I think the answer, strangely enough, lies with Lily Orchard. Yeah, that's right. This is a drama video. This is a secret drama video. This isn't actually a drama video. We are going to talk about Lorch briefly, as her almost fetishistic take on elves, I think, illustrates very, very neatly why elves have been taking this antagonistic role, and illustrates many of elves' connections to fascism and the desires of fascists. So, without further ado, guys, what the hell happened?
That we are superior to men is an established fact.
Okay, again, we're not going to be talking about Lily much, but I probably should explain some context for y'all since I didn't do that the last time, and many people had no idea who Lily Orchard was. If you're unaware, Lily Orchard is a problematic YouTuber who is famous for her many, many controversies over the years. She has written extreme NSFW My Little Pony fanfiction. She called a queer, non-binary Jewish person a Nazi, and she also likes incest. She's a very, very interesting person, but she got on my radar when I made the video Lily Orchard Doesn't Understand Baldur's Gate 3 or Romance, a video that caused her to crash out hard. She proceeded to pledge that she will destroy Baldur's Gate 3 after playing it for the first time ever, and she finished her Baldur's Gate 3 playthrough recently. Ever since then, she has declared herself the messiah of fantasy and has been on her Tumblr and Blue Sky trying to fix Dungeons and Dragons and fantasy in general, despite having played, like, what, 2 D&D games in her lifetime? It's a really weird thing that she's been doing, especially since she has an audience on those pages of like 20 people, man. It's wild. But her fantasy obsession has evolved into primarily an obsession with elves. This has always been a thing, especially when it comes to stuff like World of Warcraft. I mean, you should see her gooning over Sylvanas Windrunner. It's kind of insane, y'all. But now it's a whole other level. Lily is obsessed with the idea of elven superiority. She thinks that elves in fantasy are often done dirty, and that authors focus too much on disgusting humans. She thinks elves should be allowed to do what they were always meant to do, which, of course, in Lily's opinion, is slaughtering humans en masse, committing an ethnic cleansing that leaves humans isolated in tiny pocket planes where they belong. It actually gets worse as it bleeds into her real-life political opinions, where she implies that in the real world, she is in favor of some kind of white people cleansing, which, okay, Lily, that's certainly something, especially since, look, no matter how much Native American paraphernalia Lily Orchard steals off of street-side stands, she is still white herself, so... Oh boy. Now look, Lily Orchard is obviously being insane, again, but I do think, I don't know, she's kind of driving towards a point with the whole elven superiority thing. I mean, it's only natural. Elves live in their own isolated woods. They are one with nature, something that many humans have desired all their life. But while they are one with nature, they also live in beautiful homes, lives of complete luxury. You never see an elf looking poor, at least in many of their traditional depictions. However, while elves are isolationists, they will also intervene if they think it is absolutely necessary. And when they do intervene, they intervene with overwhelming martial and magical might, an organized military that can redirect the geopolitics of the world. But don't worry, elves are going to redirect the geopolitics of the world for the best. You see, elves are extremely long-lived. They're immortal. They're blessed with incredible wisdom, and they will guide the world in the correct direction. No need to listen to those mortal lesser races. They don't know what they're doing. I mean, to an elf, a mortal is like, you know, a child, really, or even like a pet. The elves know what's best, and they're going to guide this world into a better place as long as you let them take the reins of... Oh my god, these guys are definitely fascists. Holy crap! Yeah, it's not exactly a leap to connect the perfect immortal elves to the desires of many fascist governments. The parallels are there. Now, keep in mind that authors like Tolkien are aware of these kind of connections. I am not accusing J.R.R. Tolkien of running undercover Nazi propaganda in The Lord of the Rings. Absolutely not. In his life, Tolkien fought against that kind of imperialism. He actually factored in this elf problem into his writing, and we will talk about that more in the future. Of course, Lily Orchard gleefully ignores all that subtlety and fantasizes about a world where humans are slaughtered en masse by their superior elves. This slaughter, of course, was utterly justified and a good thing. The elves were the good guys when they did this, forcing those barbaric, imperialist, disgusting humans into those tiny pocket realms they now live in. The humans screwed around and found out. They tried to attack the superior species. Guys, is Lily a Nazi? I'm starting to think she's a Nazi. Despite Lily Orchard's insanity, like I said, these connections, they are there, and I don't think they're necessarily a bad thing. If you want to create antagonistic elves, I think there's a lot of ways you can do it. I'm trying to watch Krill campaign forward, but you know what's more important? Today's sponsor. This video is sponsored by the Game Theory Tables and their Table of Adventure, the official table for storytelling with Dungeons and Dragons. Look, you've seen gaming tables before, but none that are this level of premium. It comes in a variety of beautiful finishes, and on top of that has an inbuilt Dungeon Master screen that they call the Dungeon Master Stronghold just because of how many features it packs in. There is a reason why they chose this one to be the first official gaming table in the 5-decade history of Dungeons and Dragons. Oh, and of course, if you just want a normal dining table, the panel system allows you to transform your gaming table into just a regular piece of furniture too. A regular piece of furniture that's more gorgeous than anything I or my parents have ever owned. If you guys are interested, then you can head down into the description down below where you can pick up your own Table of Adventure. Thank you so much to Game Theory Tables for sponsoring today's episode. As always, supporting our sponsors does support us. Without further ado, let's get back to the tea. Okay, isolationism, I think that's actually a really good place to start. In many depictions, elves keep to themselves. They live in their forests, they're often hidden by magical barriers. This is the case in Lord of the Rings, this is the case in the inheritance cycle. Sometimes it's out of a need to protect themselves, like in the case of The Witcher, elves want to protect themselves from humans who see elves as their enemy. And other times, elves simply want to be left alone in their forest and keep to themselves doing their own thing. This sort of isolationism seems antithetical to many authoritarian or fascist governments, because when we think of fascism, when we think of dictators, we often think of people like the Nazis. The Nazis obviously initiated and instigated a lot of the Second World War by invading their neighbors. They were actively spreading their empire out. So you'd think that if you're being isolationist, you're keeping to yourself and leaving your neighbors alone, that would be the opposite of fascism. It's the opposite of what the Nazis did, but that's not necessarily the case. You see, isolationism, like what many elves practice in fantasy, is often used to build loyal populations that will do crazy things like snitch on their neighbors or invade other nations. You see, nations like North Korea are very much controlled by authoritarian governments, and in North Korea, they control speech so highly that their government-controlled phones will literally issue you warnings if you even use a slang word from South Korea.
What happens when I type in the word oppa? This word literally means older brother in Korean, but people here in South Korea now use it as slang to refer to their boyfriends as well. When I enter it, it automatically changes to the word comrade, and I get this warning. It says, this word can only be used to describe your siblings.
That isolationism allows North Korea and fascist governments in general to breed ideas of superiority, to breed ideas about the other, the enemy. And this could definitely be possible with fantasy elves. Elves are often cut off from the rest of the world. They can't learn about the arts of dwarves or humans, and it's easy for elves to build up a prejudice or hatred if they are so isolated. But there's also another aspect of superiority that fascists and authoritarian leaders often use, and that is natural superiority. With elves, it's actually strangely justified, right? Because elves are better. They are immortal. They often are gifted with greater martial or magical strength. This is something I see a lot in discourse around fantasy elves, especially when talking about fascist implications. You see, in the real world, fascists aren't justified. In fantasy, though, the elves are justified in thinking that they're better than everyone else. I mean, they're wiser, they're fairer, their militaries are stronger, their lives are longer. They are better than all the other races of the world. But you have to understand that that sense of real superiority is also used by fascist governments when authoritarian leaders are trying to invade other nations, usually using loyal populations whose minds have been warped by isolation, mind you. But anyway, those invasions are often justified by the idea of bringing light to these lesser countries. I mean, our technology is better. Our medicine is better. We're helping these people. That's why we are colonizing them. We are going on a humanitarian effort to make their lives better. This sense of actual superiority is what's used as justification for what can only be described as horrific invasions. This is something that happens in the inheritance cycle, and it kind of bothered me how Paolini kind of skipped over the idea of these alien elves invading cities of man and freeing them from their oppressors. Obviously, in that book, if you're aware of the context, the elves are doing something good. They are, objectively speaking, freeing people from the oppressive King Galbatorix. However, the protagonist Aragon does briefly float the idea that to the people, the elves probably don't seem any better as they invade their lands with overwhelming military might. This idea is not really expanded upon, and it always bothered me when reading this book that, generally speaking, I really do like. The point is, the actual superiority is not an excuse for conquest. And if you're trying to build an antagonistic elven empire, this is a pretty strong motivation. Speaking of elven superiority, let's talk about supernatural or divine gifts. Elves are often associated with the gods or associated with magic. For example, the Blood Elves in World of Warcraft. They see magic, the arcane, as their birthright. In fact, they love magic so much, use it so much, that they built a drug-like addiction to the stuff. That's how much they rely on this supernatural gift and see it as an inherent part, not just of their society, but of themselves. This also applies to gods. Tolkien's elves have a lot of divine connections to the greater pantheon that created the universe of Middle-earth. And these things are great, but in the real world, fascist governments, authoritarian governments, people like dictators, they often use divine gifts, divine blessing as an excuse to control people. It's a lot easier to justify atrocities if God told you to do it. Ferdinand Marcos, for example, was the president of the Philippines, and he instigated a multi-year long martial law. It was almost 2 decades long, in fact. During this tenure, he committed many horrors against his own people. Mass incarcerations, tortures, murder, cannibalism were all carried out under his orders. But the justification for all this, the speech that started this almost 2-decade-long reign of terror.
All that I do is for the Republic and for you. Rest assured that we will continue to do so. And I have prayed to God for guidance. Let us all continue to pray to Him. I am confident that with God's help, we will attain our dream of a reformed society, a new and brighter world.
Who could have believed such a thing? They said they were doing it for their god. Sometimes their king, too, but always their god.
Even the divine connection that elves have connects them to fascism. And even the reasons that authors sometimes give for why elves keep to themselves, why elves don't interfere, those reasons, they still connect to fascists. In Warhammer Fantasy, elves have a serious population problem. This is not uncommon. The idea that these immortal elves have no reason to breed and therefore their population suffers. In Warhammer, this is why elves try not to get involved in conflict. Their population is limited. If a bunch of them die in a war, that would be really, really, really bad for the elves. I really like this piece of world building and encourage you to use it if you're writing your own book or running a D&D game where elves are prominent. It's a really cool idea. However, I do want to note that if you still want to portray elves as antagonists, this can also be used. Fascist governments often police their own people using the excuse of low birth rates, using the excuse of population decline. They manufacture this existential horror as a way to discriminate against women, against queer people, to control family dynamics, and even to instigate conflict, especially from those within their own kingdom who they describe as others. If these infiltrators start breeding with our people, our race is going to be less pure. It's going to go extinct. This is rhetoric that is now very common amongst far-right figures in the United States of America as authoritarianism becomes more common within the country. If you want to create antagonistic elves, even these reasons why they wouldn't be antagonistic can still be used to make them antagonistic. My God. It's just really easy to make elves the villain. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, it's interesting. It's a cool subversion of expectations. And like I think thoroughly explained, it really, really works. But look, I'm sure I'm not the only one who loves elves. I'm sure there's many of you out there who want good guy elves, who don't want your elves to be fascist villains. So how do you do that right? Well, I have some examples that I do really love. Okay, let's start off with Tolkien. I told you we were getting back to that guy because, dang it, this is pretty much the fantasy GOAT, as many of you already know. Tolkien was well aware of the flaws of elfkind and wrote them into his books. Yes, in The Lord of the Rings, elves are pretty much overwhelmingly supportive, but in The Hobbit, Thranduil and his elves, they are antagonists. Thranduil arrests the dwarves and imprisons them seemingly forever is his plan, for no reason. I mean, he does have a reason. He has a grudge that's lasted 1,000 years, but he is blaming these dwarves for something their ancestors did literally a millennia ago. If you read the backstory as to why he's so bitter, it does make sense. But when you apply it to the people he's attacking, it seems incredibly unreasonable. The long lives of the elves, their long memories and longer grudges, Tolkien shows that to be a flaw. Immortality is not perfect, and in many ways is undesirable. On top of that, when you get into the deeper lore, into the Silmarillion, Tolkien goes further to show the flaws of elfkind. Yes, elves have had really long lives, and through those lives, they have made countless mistakes. The Silmarillion showed many atrocities carried out by the elves, which gives greater context to how they act in The Lord of the Rings. I actually disagree with this video by the Curiosity Archive where he says he hates elves. I love this video, by the way. It was a big inspiration for why I made this video, besides the insane Lily Orchard crash out. But in this video, he describes elves as hypocritical for how they speak about humanity in The Lord of the Rings. Men are weak. But I think that this doesn't make elves hypocritical. It actually explains exactly why they're acting like this. The elves have seen this before. In many ways, they are no better than humanity. The difference is their immortality. Over time, they learned these lessons and internalized them. Through thousands of years of mistakes, they gained their wisdom. The Silmarillion gives context as to why the elves act the way that they do, and why they're frustrated with the mortal races. Because with mortals, they see these people making the same mistakes over and over and over again. The same mistakes that the elves already made. And you also gotta factor in the urgency of the story. Because remember, Tolkien's elves are in decline. In many ways, the world is rejecting them, and they're being forced to leave their homes for brighter tomorrows. All this context adds to the tragedy of elves. I mean, for a lot of reasons, you kind of don't want to be an elf during the time of The Lord of the Rings. And beyond that, I think the biggest thing that Tolkien did that made elves great was he made them not the protagonists. Elves are a supporting figure in all of Tolkien's major work. The protagonist of his biggest stories are the hobbits. He doesn't believe that great heroes come from being born great. He believes great heroes come from people who choose to be good every day. People whose greatest joys are smoking weed, gardening, and drinking with their buddies. He believes that greatness comes from people who wake up in the morning, put one foot in front of the other, and make the best choices that they can. And that perfectly describes the hobbits. Elves as background, as support characters, is a big reason why the Lord of the Rings elves work so well. But what about when you want your character to be an elf? You want your protagonist to be an elf? Well, that still can work. Let's look at something a bit more recent. The manga and anime Frieren Beyond Journey's End. God, I love this story so damn much. It's so good. And Frieren is one of my favorite protagonists of all time. And in case you haven't caught on, Frieren is an elf. In fact, the reason why Frieren is such a great protagonist is because she's an elf. If you're unaware of the story of Frieren, it is essentially following an elf who is over 1,000 years old after the end of her great quest to destroy the Demon King. Her friends, her party that journey alongside her, they are starting to die out of old age. She will outlive them, and at the funeral of her best friend, she breaks down in tears for seemingly the first time. She's confused by this outburst of emotions and sets out to learn about humanity alongside a new party of friends. She learns to bond with the people around her, reconciles with the memories of the friends that she once journeyed with, and connects with a surrogate daughter who helps her to be a less cold person. Friren's journey is amazing. I love my curmudgeonly elven grandma. And I think this is what makes great elven protagonists. Not learning how to be more special, more superior, but learning how to be more human, more like a hobbit. And if you're trying to make an elven character, making them a person who's trying to learn more about us, about humanity, about the little guy, I think that's an awesome way to do it. There's one more elven character I want to talk about. He's not actually an elf, but there are a lot of parallels and similarities, especially when you start looking at the fascist angle. He's not an elf, but he is a man. A Superman. Yes. We're going to talk about Superman briefly because Superman, despite not being an elf, had a very similar fascist resurgence, especially over the past few years. There have always been evil Superman. You got Overman from the Crime Syndicate. You got the Justice Lord Superman, Injustice Superman. Recently, you've had Omni-Man from Invincible, an alien colonizer. You've had Homelander from The Boys, who is frickin' MAGA Superman. You've had plenty of evil Superman. Hell, even the Zack Snyder Superman, this aura-farming, godlike figure, he too represents a lot of the problems I have with these Superman depictions, because they glorify the power, similarly to my least favorite depictions of elves. You see, what makes Superman so great shouldn't be the power. He shouldn't be this cold, distant, uncaring god. Because the fantasy of Superman isn't a man with power. It's a man with power choosing to be a good man. And that, I think, should be the final takeaway when you're trying to make protagonistic elves. Like I've went over pretty thoroughly, elves have many reasons to act like the Thalmor of Skyrim, to act like fascists, to find themselves to be superior. But this is a fantasy. Imagine a world where these people don't act like that, where they actively choose to be better. One of my favorite changes to The Lord of the Rings during the films was Elrond and Erenduil, the Flame of the West, the sword that was broken that was reforged. In the books, Aragorn gets his super special sword at the beginning, after the Council of Elrond. Instead, in the films, they changed this, and I really freaking love this change. Elrond goes through an entire emotional journey alongside his daughter Arwen, who is dying due to the Dark Lord's influence. Elrond wants her, and himself, to leave. He has every reason to abandon Middle-earth. After everything that he's gone through over the many, many centuries, during the Silmarillion, during the Dark Lord's first invasion, he is tired of this world that is now rejecting him and his people. His daughter is literally being poisoned by being here. He has every reason to walk away, to make the selfish choice. But his daughter begs him not to. And Elrond chooses to listen, not just for her sake, not just for his people's sake, but because he knows it's the right thing to do. Despite everything, despite having every reason to be selfish, Elrond chooses to be better. In my mind, this is what makes great elven protagonists. Just having elves be the super special good guys who are always good and always make the right decisions and always know what's best and are superior and better than everyone, that feels icky. There's a reason why authors like Terry Pratchett, like the people behind Skyrim, saw that behavior and saw villain in it. Because yeah, the kind of people who see themselves as naturally superior in our real world, who see themselves as always making the right decisions, those kind of people frickin' suck. Having elves that struggle a bit, struggle with their immortality, struggle with the nature of their being, struggle with their thousands of years of wisdom, having those elves choose to be better despite everything, That is what makes a great character. Or you could just make them the bad guys. That also works really well. Who doesn't want to kill Thalmor Milk Drinker? Okay, but for real, I hope you guys enjoyed this a bit of a new take on Critical Failure. Obviously, we still had a little bit of lol cow drama in there, but I want to do this sort of video essay thing as we move into 2026, which is crazy to say. Obviously, we will continue talking about drama, both inside the TTRPG space and without, but sometimes there's not going to be drama to talk about, and I wanted to test this video essay format to see if you guys like it. I have many Dungeons & Dragons, fantasy, and storytelling topics I want to talk about. I want to see what you guys think. If you guys enjoyed and you want to let me know that you made it all the way to the end of the video, then leave the comment, elves get to choose, to let me know you were loyal to the tavern. If you want to see more of our content, you can check out our initial video covering Lily Orchard's Baldur's Gate 3 takes. It's linked up in the cards. But before you go, please do leave a like on this one and subscribe to Crispy's Tavern so you don't miss any of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to support us directly, then you can head over to our Patreon, where you can help make the stuff I do here on this channel possible. In essence, like, comment, subscribe, support. I will see you all next time. I have to go play Ghost of Yotei now, so, farewell! To pull out the blade.